safe to say that this school of energy psychology and all the methods that are contained under comprehensive energy psychology is really an energetic extension of what we might have called systematic desensitization, in a way?
Well, actually, no.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the third thing of memory reconsolidation.
That was what I was going to ask next.
So systematic desensitization says, that if you are with something, there's a problem, and you slowly wear down the response. It's this slow, stepwise learning experience. And it would predict that it takes a long time to relearn things. Right? But that's not what actually happens, at least with EP, and other things as well, it turns out. But with EP, what happens is you focus on, let's say, you focus on some traumatic incident, you do the tapping, you do whatever it is you do, and then the person basically reports that that memory is forever changed. It never comes back, ever. That's weird.
You mean like amnesia?
No, they know what happened. It just doesn't come back the same way. It doesn't come back. When you have a flashback, when you have a quasi-flashback, I think about Vietnam or Afghanistan or whatever, and I'm acting as if I'm there, the whole thing is activated. So this gets into memory reconsolidation work, which and there's a science behind it, and then a guy named Bruce Ecker and I think it's Tiller. They wrote an interesting book called it's Unlocking the Emotional Brain, where they're bringing this neuroscience work to psychotherapy. But basically, what memory reconsolidation suggests is that, and I'm going to do this in a very simple way, that when a memory comes up we don't walk around with memories of all kinds of things all the time.
Right.
When a memory comes up, it comes up with whatever it's associated with. So there's the thought, there's the feeling, there are your biochemistry, it all comes with it. And if it's a traumatic memory that's not processed, all of that stuff comes with it. And the problem is, if I sit and I talk about it, or I do abreaction, or we do prolonged exposure, which I think is a horrible, approach, is torture. If we do all that, what happens is when it goes back, it kind of goes back pretty much with the same old, with all that stuff. Now, with systematic desensitization says, yes, it'll go back with a little difference, a little difference, a little difference. It's this long, arduous process. But memory reconsolidation suggests that if the memory comes up, and you can do a certain number of things, 3 of them to be precise, and one of the major ones is that the person has basically a felt access to a totally different way of being with that experience. It's just not the same. It acts as something totally different. If that happens, and a few other things, when the memory goes back into store, it goes back in the new formulation. And when it comes back out, it comes back out the way it went in that last time.
The new formulation is the way it comes in.
When it goes into store, it's permanently changed.
Yeah.
You see. And so that explains, so when we talk about polyvagal theory, we talk about amygdala deactivation, those things are the process by which all the stuff down-regulates and the affect goes down, the person gets calmer and all that. But then it also meets the criteria of memory reconsolidation so that it goes in such a way that it never comes back out again the same way. And that's where, so the next time the person thinks about it, they go, oh, it doesn't bother me anymore. And now they don't have to be afraid of it anymore. And that has its own life. So you have this kind of unfolding of how it plays out in their life. And there are various steps that you can do to magnify that kind of unfoldingness.
You said there might be 3 parts to memory reconsolidation?
So the 3 steps to activate this kind of memory reconsolidation and changing of experience. Number 1 is you need to call up the memory itself. So it has to come up in some active form. Second thing you need to do is you need to create a counter experience. That you have to represent the memory in such a way that it really fundamentally contradicts the experience, the meaning of the other experience. So it's just radically different. And then the third thing is you have to repeat that you have to repeat step number 2 several times for it to really, nerves that fire together,
wire together,
right?
Yeah.
So let's look at what happens with, it could either be EFT or TFT and other approaches as well. We keep always mentioning these two. It's sort of unfair to everybody else. Or even TAT for that matter.
Yeah.
There are AIT for that. So what do? We say, first of all, I'd like you to think about the problem. How much does it bother you? It's a 9. So clearly it's active.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we do the tapping, right? And the suds ends up going, let's keep a simple version. Let's say we tap a few rounds and the suds goes down to 0 or near 0. Okay? So that's so in a certain way, now I say, think about the problem. How much does it bother you? 0. What? That's weird. And that's, weird. So there's your second condition. And then we say, okay, now go into it again. Tell me, I want you to repeat it again. Tell me, let's see if there's anything else there. So and in our testing of the work, we're going to go in at least 2, if not 3 times to really see that there's nothing there. So the person has multiple experiences. It also happens if you're breaking it down into smaller bits from 10 sets of 9 to 5 to 3, and you're working maybe on different aspects of the problem. You're getting repeated exposures to this thing that's getting less and less. So it's just getting less and less. That's never been less and less before. And so the client's having this experience again, and there's this, again, going back to polyvagal. Well, I think this is so powerful, by the way. So if you read Ecker's book, there are ways to do this that I think are a little more cognitive. But with EP, it's this bottom-up thing. It's just different in your bones. You might try to, you can't explain it, but you know it.
It's a felt experience.
It's felt sense.
And it's happening in real time in the sessions.
And, people kind of are a little stunned. In fact, sometimes you get the effect, they'll say, well, what number is it at? You see they're totally calm. They go, it's a 4 or 5. You go, and you ask them, is it really a 4 or 5 now, or are you just remembering what it was?
Right.
And they'll go, well, I don't know if it's going to come back. I understand. But right now, what is it? Well, it's 0. And the person looking around, you're waiting for
they're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right? And it's like, so again, you're calling them back. You say, well, it's a 0. Yeah, it's a 0. Is that weird? Yeah, that's really weird. Has that ever happened before? No, it's never happened. Go in, look at it again. Really? They're looking it around. And they're like, really? Like, huh? So you 2, 3, 4 times, they're in it. That's the third condition.
So it's like internal rehearsals that are occurring in the session while we repeat the tapping rounds.
Right. And then what happens is, whatever, and nobody really told me how this happens, but when it goes back into long-term store, this new version is what goes back in. So anytime it comes out again, it's gone. And it turns out that sometimes it generalizes to other things that are similar. Especially if you've said, well, this behavior means X. So, which are linked to other, this experience means that I'm a loser. This experience means I'm weak. This experience means I should be afraid. And then there are maybe 10 other experiences like that. Well, sometimes you have to work at it more explicitly, but sometimes it generalizes.
The meaning making that people draw from their experiences seems to shift.
Right.
Which leads me into the next question is, so when a client walks into session, I don't think that most people have really self-diagnosed all of these specific events in any kind of way. So if you could speak a little bit to how a therapist coming new to the work would be able to address someone with limiting belief systems. I mean, that's usually how a client walks in, a limiting belief system. I'm unlovable. I don't think the world is a safe place.
Right.
How does that fit in?
Well, generally what you want to do is you want to get specific examples. How do you know? You're an NLP. How do you know? What events have happened in your life that have led you to believe that you're not lovable? well, there was that time that Becky Sue
Mm-hmm.
said that I'd never want to go with a guy like you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and whatever else there were. And so you gather a series of these, and then you
Mhm.
treat those things. And in EFT, it's knocking out the legs of the tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not on. It's you're. So the big thing is called the schema,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm unlovable. That's a schema in cognitive, right? But schemas are built up of specific events.
Right.
Even as far as I know, even from cognitive psychology, that's what you'd say. And
Mm-hmm.
the way you change the schema is you depotentiate these events at an unconscious level because you've treated them. In an energy, from an energy model, look at it. It's kind of like Star Wars or something, where they would have the shield. Not Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars. They'd have the shield, and there'd be this generator coming up, and the shield would spread out.
Right.
Knock out the shield. And maybe there's 5 shields, generators, generating this force field of I'm not lovable. Knock out the shields, knock out the generators, these events that say, Becky Sue rejected me, my mother said, I wish you were never born. Little things like that.
So energy psychology is like sending in Obi-Wan to knock out the generator of the shield.
I knew we got to get science fiction in there somehow.
Right.